Hi guys, and welcome back to Ask a Lawyer. I have some new stories for you today. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe. So I have been living with my stepmother and dad for the past few months. I really dislike my stepmom. She is always insulting me for things that aren't fully my fault, like being socially anxious. And she doesn't treat me like a family member. She also refuses to use my real name, because that's her other older kid's name too. She calls me by my middle name instead, which I absolutely hate. I told this to her 1,000 times, but she just doesn't care. Yesterday, I went shopping with her for groceries. After we got out of the shop and walked over to the car, she noticed her boss a few cars away and went over there to talk. After a few minutes of me awkwardly standing by the car, she shouted to me to go there and introduce myself. But she, as always, didn't use my real name. I decided to ignore her. I hoped that she would realize her mistake and correct herself. But she kept shouting my middle name. She gave up trying after a while and said goodbye to her boss very soon. Needless to say that she was extremely upset. She remained silent while she was driving home, but I knew that I won't get away with this without a big argument. When we got home, she basically exploded. She was shouting at me for like 20 minutes on how I embarrassed her in front of her boss and that I'm immature and childish. My dad also took her side. He understands that I don't like being called by my middle name, but said that I should act like a grown-up and know better than petty revenge. Are they right? Was I acting childish and should I apologize? Update. So I talked to her. She said that she didn't realize how much I hate my middle name, and that she doesn't understand why do I care so much. She also said that she's willing to call me by another name of my choosing, but not my real name, because that's her other daughter's name. I'm not saying I'm happy with this, but it's still better than my middle name. Sadly, it's impossible to make normal-sounding nicknames out of my real name. So after the post, I had a long talk with my dad. I told him how much I hate my middle name and that I deserve to be called by my real name. Thankfully, he listened to me for once. He agreed that it's disrespectful towards me and promised that he'll try to peacefully convince my stepmom. Well, sadly, it didn't go as he planned, and they ended up arguing about basically everything, not just me. I didn't want to eavesdrop, but I overheard some things. It was mainly about the kids, money, my dad working too much, my stepmom not working enough, and I suspect that my stepmom cheated on my dad or wanted to cheat on him, but I'm not sure. After a few days, my stepmom left without a word, and now she rarely comes home. Her relationship with my dad is probably over. I just feel so guilty, because it was me who ruined their relationship. I just wanted to be called by my real name, but now they broke up, and they both hate me for ruining our family over this minor thing. I think OP has nothing to feel guilty about. Stepmom is refusing to call OP by her preferred name isn't just petty, immature, and disrespectful. It was also her sending a clear message that she didn't consider OP a part of her family. OP mentioned herself that she treats her like an outsider. Stepmother is not a good person. My wife and I have been together for 18 years. We had our ups and downs, but overall, our marriage has been solid, and she was my best friend. We've always been very close with our children and have raised them very much as a unit. And it turns out they're very close to us. About 2 weeks ago, I brought up an advice column in the paper I had read regarding infidelity and talked about it for a bit. And I could see she clearly had started to tear up and was attempting to hide it. So I asked her what was bothering her. She confessed that about 7 years ago, she cheated on me with a former coworker on a business trip, and then once with him after that before breaking it off due to guilt. This was around the time after she left that job for a new one, which she had told me back then was due to feeling like it wasn't a good fit, but now confesses was because she didn't want to work with him anymore. She says she never had a good reason for it. She knew it was wrong then, but gave into the urge, and nothing has ever happened since. Claims she confessed now as she can't live with the guilt of hiding it from me. We talked about it for the next 3 days when the kids were in school, while trying our best not to let them know while they were home. I realized I knew I'd never be able to let this go, nor would I be able to forgive her. She's distraught. We sat our kids down to tell them about the fact our marriage was ending. Obviously, this was extremely tough. They acted as one would expect, and blame was thrown at both of us. My wife and I agreed to tell them it was mutual. But I guess guilt got the better of her again, because she ends up crying and telling them not to blame me, that she betrayed my trust in the past and just told me now, and that it's all her fault. This had the opposite effect that she intended, and now both of our kids absolutely resent me for not forgiving Mom and ruining our family. My wife has repeatedly tried to put blame back on herself, which only makes the kids double down and defend her more as if she's the victim. I don't want to drag their mother through the mud, so I'm trying to explain as tactfully as I can. But they've gone as far as saying that when I get my own apartment, they don't want to come see me anymore, and refuse my suggestion of seeing a therapist together, and reject the idea that I still plan to see them on a regular basis and be on good terms with their mother. My wife isn't helping matters, as she's been an emotional wreck since I've told her of my plan to leave. I love my kids, but I don't know how to make them understand this without dragging their mother through the mud. I don't know how to assure them this has nothing to do with them, or that I'm not trying to punish or hurt their mom. I just know that I cannot get past this, and for my own happiness, I need to leave. Any suggestions on how to get them to stop seeing me as the villain would be helpful. Okay guys, I think that this is a tough one. To be honest, I am surprised what I'm gonna say now, but I think that OP should try and forgive his wife. He says he doesn't want to drag his kid's mother through the mud, but I guess that in this case, there will always be the one bad parent. Is it him or his wife? So if he decides not to tell his kids that their mom cheated on him, he will always stay the bad guy who didn't forgive their mom to keep the family. If he tells the kids that their mom cheated on him, they will hate Mom. So he needs to decide if he's ready to be the bad guy in his children's eyes, just to protect their mother's name. What do you think, guys? Backstory first. Growing up, I always wanted to work on cars for a living, but my family didn't like this idea. After being pressured to take a state government job, I ended up working in law enforcement at 21 years old. A few years in, I became very withdrawn from everyone in my life and was diagnosed with severe clinical depression. At 25, I decided I didn't want to stay in that field for the rest of my life, and I left my job to go to a trade school to pursue what I've always wanted to do. While in school, I took a part-time job to get by and to have some form of income. While working part-time, I became romantically involved with my boss, and we started a serious relationship. Eventually, we got engaged and started living together. This all brings me to now. A few months back, I graduated from school and found the job of my dreams. As with most vehicle manufacturers, you are occasionally required to leave town to attend manufacturer training for a few days. Recently, I learned that I will be traveling several states away in April for a 3-day training. My fiancée lost her mind when I told her. Her first reaction was telling me that I will cheat on her while out of town. I have never cheated on anyone in my life, and I don't plan on becoming that person now. I calmly told her that I would never do that. She said, "That's what all guys say before they cheat on their spouse on work trips." Her second reaction was to say that, "You're going to decide you're happier away from me while you're gone and decide to leave for good. You may never even come back." I once again reassured her that this is not the case and that I love her very much. After trying to calm her down and explain that it's just for work and to progress my career, she told me that if I go, it's inevitable that I will cheat on her or leave her. So if I want to keep our relationship, I can't go. She said if I decide to go, she will end our relationship in advance to avoid the pain of me being out of town. I'm not sure what to do here. Do I save my relationship or keep my dream job? Any help is appreciated. I think OP's fiancé is being ridiculous. OP needs to keep the job, and that is out of the question. Also, I think he needs to try and find out why his fiancée doesn't trust him. Maybe she has been cheated on before. But if the relationship ends just because of this trip, then I think it's a good thing. It means the relationship is not strong enough, and a marriage wouldn't last. This will save you a lot of heartache and money down the road. Edit. I'm going to sit down with her tonight when we're both home and calmly talk to her about trust and support for each other. I'm going to stand my ground and go to my training. If she ends the relationship, I will have a clean conscience in knowing that I did what was true to me and that I gave her a chance. Update. After she got home from work, I calmly tried to talk to her. I told her that I understood that it's something she's having a hard time with, and I asked what I could do to make it better for her. She said, "Do whatever the duck you want to do." She said she was done caring about me because clearly I don't care about her. Preceding that, she ignored me for the rest of the night and stared at the television. I asked what this meant for our future, and she said she is done worrying because she's convinced that this trip is the end of our relationship and she needs to just accept it. A couple people asked why I don't simply take her with me. When we first became a couple, she was very clear about the fact that she wouldn't travel because she refuses to spend a night away from her dog. I even suggested bringing him, but it was a big no. A lot of people suggested counseling or therapy. This is something I've suggested before as well. But she would not do it or allow me to go on my own. She said that all therapists are cons and would just try to convince me to leave her. Update 2. This morning, I finally got her to talk about why she doesn't trust me, and I'm not sure if I feel better or worse now. I asked her very simply, "Why don't you trust me?" She said, "You're clearly unhappy with me, so why wouldn't you cheat on me?" This confused me because I never said to her that I'm unhappy. I asked her why she felt that I was unhappy, and she said, "You always want to visit your family and talk about how you miss your friends. Clearly, I'm not enough for you. You're enough for me, but I guess you just don't feel the same way if you need to spend time with other people." I was in denial at first, but I think I can finally admit that I am being controlled and manipulated. Where I go from here, I'm not sure yet. Things just can't stay this way. Looks like there won't be a wedding, guys. Let's go to another story. When I was 8, my mom passed away, and my dad remarried my stepmother when I was 11. My stepmother also had 2 children of her own, Erica, 11, and Becky, 13. Growing up, Erica and Becky made it clear they didn't consider me their sister and would continuously exclude me. They also recruited their cousins from their mother's side, and I was pretty much ostracized by them too, so family events were horrible. Erica in particular really hated me, and I still don't know why. She would joke about my mom's death, break my things, including a necklace that passed from my mom to me. Would have massive tantrums when my maternal grandparents bought me anything, so I was either forced to share or it was confiscated. Note, my stepsisters were never expected to share gifts they got from their dad's family. Would steal my friends and boyfriends from me. When we were both 18, Erica ended up pregnant and decided to keep the baby. Our parents gave her both of our college funds to help her with the cost of having a baby, since she didn't work and the father wasn't in the picture. I was devastated and pretty much gave up on the idea of college at this point. Thankfully, my maternal grandparents had been secretly building a separate college fund for me, and I won some scholarships, so I was able to go to college with minimal debt. My relationship with my dad has been strained ever since. So when I got married, I had my maternal grandpa do all the typical father-daughter stuff. My husband owned multiple properties before we got married and has a successful business. He helped me pay off my student loan debt, and we're doing very well financially. My parents recently got into some financial trouble and so have to downsize their house. They're now demanding that I let Erica and her daughter move into either my house or one of my husband's other properties. I flat out refused. Their argument is that my husband's sister, who is also a single mother, lives in one of these properties rent-free, and that if we are willing to do it for her, we should be willing to help Erica too. They're now calling me selfish for making a child homeless, and that my husband's money has made me a snob. Before this, Becky and I had started repairing our relationship, and had actually grown closer, but now she's stopped talking to me, and I've been shut out again. My stepmother's family have also reached out to call me horrible names. The thing is, me and my husband could support Erica and her daughter, And I do feel like maybe I'm being petty for holding something she did to me when we were children against her. My niece is also the one who's going to suffer if I don't help. My husband says Erica is an a-hole who never apologized, so doesn't deserve our help anyways. But he'll help if that's what I want. Am I the idiot for refusing to help her? I don't think OP is an idiot. I am sure once they move in, it would be impossible to move them out. I am also wondering if Erica's and OP's relationship started to get better before or after OP married her well-off husband. She made it very clear that she didn't consider OP to be her family. So why does she suddenly expect to be treated like family now when she's never done OP the same courtesy? She can move back in with Mom and Dad. She made her bed, and so did Mom and Dad. I don't know why OP even bothers keeping in touch with them.